friends. Oh, it's a little bit hard. You know, we actually have 2 different calendars at the dojo. Can you imagine that? One calendar is like a ghost calendar that I've been using. No one else uses it. Imagine how confusing it is for a boomer GM. He's got enough technical problems. And then they give him 2 different calendars, and then they're like, we don't even know. We don't even know where you found that one called Dojo Calendar. So, anyways, we're a little late, but that's fine. That's fine. We got, well, let me just say that the big takeaway for today for me is that we've got 9 players graduating. And of this 9, we have an overwhelming majority that have submitted not only notes, but good notes. And I say it every time, but that's been the most pleasant surprise about the dojo training program, is that I just wasn't convinced that people were going to do the work. I knew that that was the path for people to improve their game, but I wasn't convinced it was going to happen. Like I said before, I've had students try in the past. They do shoddy work, but when you publish for a community trying to make your thoughts as lucid as possible, instead of just some one chump GM you're doing the notes for, with whom you're going to look at the game, much better this way. And one of the things I just want to stress, a lot of people are like, oh, Kraai, wouldn't it be better if I took lessons from you rather than doing this program thing? No, the program is better. The program is better and much cheaper than doing lessons with me. The program is $15 a month, $100 a year. I cost $1 gazillion. I cost $1 gazillion. And I have no time. I'm more interested in doing this anyway. And here you have the structure to hold yourself accountable. And I really want to stress this act of submitting games to the database. Boom, there it is. I mean, that is the most important thing. So let's get into it. We've got several people here. Richard ZT is up first. And I believe, we're going to check this in a second, but I believe that Richard has graduated before. Okay, so here we go. Yeah. And by the way, these notes might seem odd to those of you who use a computer or use some like theory bashmiri, but this is exactly what you want to do. And later on, Richard's reflections on this position might change, but this is just a perfect starting point. Weird. Now, nota bene, at this level, they're not going to play your chessable course, whatever it is. They're going to do something weird like knight h6. And I love the response d4. They do something weird, let's pop them with d4. Now, one of the interesting things that we're going to see, and let's put it as a question, will white take the knight? A lot of people will take the knight because they're like, oh, that's a bad knight over there, or it's a pawn structure damage, taking the knight. Well, I don't think we're in a hurry to take that knight. That knight's not going anywhere. It's not the greatest knight. Let's see, d6, okay. Now, we could win something. Let's see how it goes. Pop. 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 Now, knight d8 was definitely... So white's done great. White is going to win a pawn. Knight d8 will lose the pawn on e5. And this way you're going to lose the pawn on f7. So, fantastic. I think de was definitely the right continuation. And by the way, white has played, as far as I can tell, an absolutely perfect game so far. Oh, until that move. I definitely want white to grub the pawn here. The pawn is not just a pawn, but it also, excuse me, I didn't mean to make that error, but it also will extend the scope to the g8 square so that the light square damage for black is very significant. Let's read what white says here. As we have a slight advantage, our preference would be to keep pushing the attack. We don't see a good one-move attacking option, so we castle. Okay, so I think that they simply didn't see, Richard didn't see that the f7 pawn was hanging. Again, at this level, what I mean by that, especially under 1,000, the key to winning games is, can you develop your pieces and then take the free stuff? After you take the free stuff, can you get into a winning endgame and then mate them with a queen versus naked king situation? It is the path out of the under 1,000 group. Okay. So here we go. Pop, we can still take on f7. Bishop e3. Now, we'll say this, even though we're missing the fact that we could win the pawn on f7, bishop e3 has a lot of positional juice behind it that I actually quite enjoy. Namely, what white is saying here is I'm not interested in pawn structure, I'm interested in the active pieces. So, unfortunately, black could take and play f6 and really negate a lot of our advantages. Let's see what they do. Whoa! 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 This was my top 2 mistakes in the game. Here I lost track of the board in my mind. So he did have an over the board thing next to him. And obviously we must take on e3. Okay. So, all right. So like I said, this is losing material is all about what's happening on this level. Okay. Oh, best try. Okay. Weird. Let's read what Richard says. At this stage, I'm focused a lot on advancing my c3 knight to b5 to add an attacker on the bishop. This is probably too slow, as I will need to add one more attacker, and my bishop can take out my f3 knight whenever they want. Think about h3 to push the bishop off, but in response, the guy's probably going to trade. All I can say is a3 doesn't really do anything. And let's just say the obvious, you're toast here because you're down a piece, but that doesn't mean that the game is over. So I think your best practical chance would have been to move the knight somewhere and aim for c3, right? And then black would be the one to have to show you some skill in putting you away. Now, even after a3 they do, it's just that a3 doesn't do anything. Snip, snop, king d7. Now, let me just say, king d7 is weird because they're not being sensitive to the fact that the rook is still hitting them, right? Okay. Notice that the f-pawn stuff didn't really do anything. You need to move the knight so that you can threaten c3. Okay, now, it is true that you're correctly trying to undermine the bishop, right? But now black is finally out of the problems. Bishop makes more sense to me, but okay, it's fine. Okay, might as well try. Okay, good. We pushed him back a little bit. Good. Good move from black, simply trading. Oh, and now we're in big troubles. Oh. Okay. So there it goes. Now, Richard has graduated to up to the 600, 700. Now, if you are just joining the dojo, you've never been here before, one thing I want you to observe is 783 is their Chess.com rating, and what we do is we translate that to what we call an international rating, just because there's all these different ratings, lead chess, yada, yada. So let's go now and take a look at Richard in the dojo scoreboard here. Pop. And I believe this is actually Richard's second graduation. We're going to check it out. I need to hide that members thing. Okay, so there's Richard. And so, right, he was in the 400, 600 and then moved up. But let's take a look here at how they did it. So 13 games played, 7 analyzed, 8 postmortems, fantastic. Several of them made in ones, beautiful. First chess workbook, a lot of work done. Richard has done a lot of work. And now one of the things to say about this progress, okay, is that Richard is suffering from dropping stuff, okay? And this is not something that you simply say, I'm going to stop doing it, right? And even if you become a GM, you're still going to drop stuff. But it is a skill that people can get much better at. And so Richard's main thing here is going to be to not drop stuff. And one of the things we're working on for our May 1st reboot of the program is a regimen for the under 1,000 players to play a bunch of games, even quicker games, just with the focus of not dropping stuff, right? Forget everything else. We're just interested in not dropping stuff and taking the free stuff, such as the pawn on f7. One thing I'll say about Richard's play, you can see from Richard's first 7 or 8 moves, GM level, right? So the principles are there, and it's just this one skill that Richard needs. And after that happens, obviously, Richard is going to go into the higher cohorts. All right, boom, let's go to the next one. And next up, we have Mustard Tiger. Let me just check. I got yelled at. Kostya was making fun of me. He's like, dude, because I was, anyways. I will read the chat, okay? I will read the chat. When Jesse says not dropping stuff, does he mean leaving pieces hanging? I think that's what you mean. Yes, leaving pieces hanging, exactly. Okay, so we're going to take a look at Mustard Tiger. And Mustard Tiger is black, so let's flip it around. By the way, you can see I'm just organized this, so we'll go from highest or lowest graduation to highest. Everything is fine so far, except now h6. h6 isn't the end of the world, but it definitely is a loss of time. Okay, and now white gets frisky with knight h4. Okay, now this knight h4, we'll see if it actually leads to a loss of a pawn, like Mustard Tiger says. Oh, wait a second. Kraai, buddy. Hey. Got it. Okay, time out. Now, knight h4, let's just put it at white's position in perspective. We are up 2 tempi, one because we're white and the other because black gave us h6. All right? So it is still a little difficult to figure out what to do here. And there's a number of things. Knight h4, in some ways, isn't the most ridiculous idea. We'd like to put the knight on f5 and maybe play f4. So a couple things. To my mind, the simplest thing for white would be to ask the bishop a question with bishop e3, just to see what black does. And if they take it, then opening the f file and then thinking about knight h4, f5 makes a little bit more sense to me. However, this position is still interesting for white. The problem is now, will this become a threat? And it seems hard to stop, honestly. Let's see what white does. Boom. Now I think knight e4 is going to win a pawn. Let's see if they do it. Boom. Correct. Now let me just say, this is very well played. This is the kind of calculation we are looking for here. Absolutely. Yeah, beautiful. Now, one thing that we should calculate here, this is fine though, is we could, but I'm gonna get, I don't want to get too fancy. I say we can think about that, but don't worry, it's not a thing. Knight f3, pop, pop, and here we go. Black has a strategically winning position, and the reason we say that, or I say that, is that in addition to being up a pawn, it's a very strong central pawn. And at some point, we can probably play d5 to lock the bishop out. I also like what black does here, because now we get this beautiful f-file. Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so pop, Rook b8. Now that's weird. That's weird. Why are why are we doing that? Okay, so let's talk about it. What would be a natural move here? Something like queen f6 would be natural. Any kind of developing move with the queen to connect the rooks, and then really our dream should be to double the rooks on the f file, put pressure on this bad boy over here. If rook b1 comes, I think bishop b6 is the most natural way to protect that pawn. Weird. Why is bishop b2 weird? Because, hey, buddy, you just put your bishop behind the pawn. Okay, now here, let's just say we can get a sense of what black's intentions were with rook b8. I didn't realize that that was their intention. It's a very provocative way to develop the rook. And if it's here, we wouldn't really want to play b4, and I guess in Mustard's mind, what the idea is to stop c4. d4, though, is a good move. And the problem that we have here is that e6 is falling. Now, the first thing that white could have done here is white could have taken immediately. And then, so this is how we get ourselves into trouble. So one of the things I want to just share in a position like this after queen e2 is the art of not dropping stuff. A lot of it has to do with just seeing miles away how something might fall. So on queen e2, you should have in your mind, oh, maybe d4. Already you should be thinking of that move and that this pawn is a little tender. And so moves like queen d7 or queen f6, they improve your position and cover the tender spots in your position. So for example, d4 is already a thought for him. And then bishop b2 had one goal. It had one goal, and that was to play d4. And now white is fully back into it, I think, especially because they could take on e6 now with check. But white says pop, and you get really frisky now. Now, what I don't understand is why it's a double question mark, right? So, first of all, I think you are already a little bit worse here. And there's a lot of double question marks happening here. You're going to lose a pawn in this position, and it's going to be a little bit unpleasant, right? So let's think for a second about what best practice might have been here. So first of all, on queen f6, I think c3 is kind of highfalutin. The simple way would be pop and then pop, right? Yeah, so we are in trouble here. c3 is weird because it blocks their own bishop, right? Bishop b6. I don't know what else black was supposed to do. Mustard. Wait, okay, here's a very important thing with the annotations. I think a lot of people it's an emotional response. And partly it'll always be a little emotional, right? But notice that black doesn't have much of a choice. And that's why when you do give yourself a double question mark, always try to say like what you think the opponent or you should have done, right? This isn't an easy situation. I mean, you're going to lose the b pawn. And frankly, I have sympathy for the guy not taking because there's all kinds of juice all of a sudden over here. But okay, they should have taken. And that's weird. It does look for a minute like no one sees that black's bishop b pawn is hanging. And one of the things I want you to see, Mustard, is you have been obsessed over this b4 move for a while, right? You've been obsessed. And the thing to see about it in this position is there are some positions I'm sure b4 would be a good move, but here the issue really is that white has imprisoned his bishop or her bishop, and then boom, b4 is going to help free that bishop. Okay, so here we go. Pop, they see it. Boom. Queen d3. Good. Well, queen e2 would be safer, because on queen d3, maybe you can play bishop d4 and take on b2. Let's see if you do it. Bam! Good move. So what we got to say is queen d3 was a mistake, right? That's my question mark there. And queen e2 would have held on to the bishop. These are the skills that will take you out of 1,000, right? And seeing bishop d4, fantastic. Good move. And it's not just a pawn, right? It's a big fatty rook over there. Rook d2, good. Snip, snop, and now knight d5 looks good. Fantastic. Knight f5 is also fine. I wanted knight d5 to bring my knight here. This is also fine. Mark this as a mistake because white has a chance to occupy the open b file. Now, let's talk about this. This is good. Rook b1 is in some ways correct, but for the main reason incorrect because of rook b1, right? So rook e1 is fine. And let's talk about it. Now you have a position where you have some pawns, right? You have one pawn, and I think a rule of thumb I like is to say that a one-pawn advantage is a clear advantage, right? Two pawns is decisive. And here I would say, unless like we had that one situation where white won a nice center pawn at the beginning, here the center pawn doesn't mean that much because you're not going to dominate the minor pieces. So a very nice position, maybe not winning yet. What move do I want black to make? Something like king h8, just to get out of the drama. Rook b8, okay, fine. g4 is totally strange, totally strange. Now, one thing I want to stress is when it comes to heavy middle games, such as this, by heavy we just mean queen and rook. Some people call them heavy endgames. The safety of the king is paramount, and g4 really just made the king a lot weaker to no end. And one thing I want to stress is for even GMs kind of even positions like this sometimes, it's hard to know what to do as white because you're kind of sitting and it's hard to know how to improve the position. However, this move makes the position worse. Strange. Okay, and that's poor because his king or their king is worse, right? And so now we're going to exchange our rook, which will make the defense of the king easier. Good move. Now, one thing about, and I say good move because two reasons. One, we know that the pawn endgame is winning because you're up a pawn, or at least we'd like to believe that this is a winning pawn endgame. Maybe it's not actually so simple the more I think about it. But the other factor here is that in general, we want to centralize our queen. One great training moment for everybody involved here would be to ask, is it in fact winning? And I want to stress that to my naked eye, it's not necessarily clear, right? Because you cannot create a clean pass pawn here, and these guys have their own juice going, right? So not immediately clear that maybe white could have taken. Good move. Reasonable, good. King f7 was maybe better, but this is still right-spirited. e5, good. c4, now we want to see e4. Let's see what you did. You just took it. Even better. Even better. I trusted white. I was like, he's not hanging in that pawn. Check to the miserable king. And now we got to be a little careful because of h5. So at least white has a trick here. Queen f7, good. King g7, beautiful. Now here you could have played gh. Beautiful. Look at that. Okay, good. Okay. So Mostly a great game, and we can see how Mustard is on the path, and that, like Richard, has some grief in not hanging stuff. But at the same time, there's elements of tactics here that are great, such as this kind of tactic. And a lot of times you get really interesting tactics that can come about here, which aren't always super easy. So, for example, imagine this pawn were here, then I think knight e4 is probably a blunder, because knight e4, queen h4, bishop g5, and then the queen is toast, right? So these are very tricky positions that you want to spend some good time on in the game. Okay, so let's change it up. We'll go to the scoreboard, and we'll take a look at how the Mustard Tiger is doing with the scoreboard. All right, beautiful. So, Mustard Tiger, this is 600, 700, gained 94 points. This is what I like to see. 13 games played, 13 analyzed. Beautiful. Mate in ones. Good. A little bit of the First Chess Notebook, some Puzzle Rush PRs, Classic Games 1, and a couple other things to finish it off. Beautiful. And so you can see Mustard, it basically, I would say, just looking at this, for the most part, it is progress through game analysis. And as I mentioned before, one of the things that we're going to change up about the under 1,000 cohort on May 1st is that we're going to include more just games, volume of games for the under 1,000 at a faster time control, where they're simply focused on not dropping material. Again and again, that's what we're seeing is the major challenge. Okay, let's go forward. All right. So, now we got Wood JRX. By the way, this stream I'm doing today, what's interesting, nice about it, is that we have a strong majority of people who have graduated, who have submitted games to the database. In months prior, there have been times when not that many had submitted to the database, and I'm hoping that me yelling at people during these graduation shows is getting that rate of people who are actually not only doing the work but putting in the database, making that rate higher. In any case, I'm just happy to see it higher. I really think when you think about the Dojo training program as a whole, people submitting their games is like a key indication that we're healthy, right, as a group. All right, here we go. So this is Wood JRX, and we'll take, I think Wood JRX has graduated once before. We'll check that out in the scoreboard in a second. So H6, right. You'll see this often at this level. We saw it actually in the last game, where people are terrified of some kind of knight G5. And there's nothing wrong with castles, but we'll say that D4, whenever, in fact, it was a gut reaction you should have, is whenever they neglect to develop, brute force development should be our response, right? Okay, keeping it nice and simple with D4 would have been better, but you're doing great. Queen F6, poor. Knight C3, good. Threatening knight D5. Queen G6, poor. Now, I agree with you. I think knight D5 is strong. And now we're going to get an interesting situation. Check to the queen. Knight D5. And what's the interesting situation I'm thinking of? Well, let's read first what you wrote. I wanted my knight here anyway, and now I get to put it here and continue chasing the queen at the same time. Okay, so here's the question that I would have, and that is, takes the knight, check to the king, king b8, knight here, and let's say b6 followed by winning the knight. Now, white definitely has compensation, let's say, for the two pieces, but maybe this is a little highfalutin cry, so keep it short. But in general, what happens when these kinds of positions is the rooks themselves aren't especially active yet, and so we should worry about the minors crushing us in this kind of position, because the minors will become very active. Okay, black keeps it safe. Bishop e3. Now, notice that it just makes me nervous. It just makes me nervous that the knight's hanging out like that over there. But okay, it's true. If black didn't take it last move, they're not going to take it this time. Bishop e7, knight f5. Good. A lucky exchange. I honestly somehow had missed that the square was defended by the c8 bishop. Okay. Now again, this kind of awareness of square control is just a key factor in us doing well here. And it takes time to get good at it. Knight f6, good move. Knight e7. Let's read what you write. Options were knight c3 or trading for either bishop or knight. I figured taking out his second bishop was better, limiting his long-distance pieces, and I had the bishop pair. Okay, let's talk about it. When you take on e7, something I want you to appreciate is, first of all, you are developing the queen. Very important to see. That's the developing move. And then they will have chances maybe to later hit our bishop. The next thing I want you to see is this bishop's pretty much a chump here. And it's not fighting for the light squares. And the reason the light squares are kind of cool is right now anyway, your bishop is what we call unopposed. It's got no one messing with it. So I would have preferred a move like queen f3, which is I think what you write. And we definitely don't want to take that thing. No, not interested in taking that knight. I just want to leave this bad boy right here. Right here. And you could do a variety of things here, but we want to open up the position at some point. Maybe rook e1 is a nice natural move for us here. Okay, so knight e7. Pop. Weird. You're right. Queen e7 is much more natural. d5. Okay, good move. Check to the miserable king. Now notice what's happening now. Now that we've lost control of the light squares, suddenly our beautiful bishop is going to be kind of a chump. Even on bishop b3, which would have been better, you're right, it's blocked. Good move. e4, okay. So, let's talk about this for a second. If e4 isn't winning some kind of piece, then we have to say that e4 is a bad move. And the reason is that these pawns control these beautiful center squares, but the second black moves them, then black is going to give up a lot of these beautiful dark squares, right? So what's the right move for black? You should castle or queen d7, one of those moves. Good move, rook a d1. I like it a lot. c4. Now we're playing chess. This is what I want to see. This is what I want to see. Yeah, now we're doing good. Now we're giving him the business. And notice, this is all happening because black forgot to develop their pieces. And is opening up the position, not developing, and because you have the bishops, boom, now it's all over. It happened so fast. And it has everything to do with the unprincipled nature of this move, e4. Not developing and giving away his beautiful center pawns. Beautiful move. Simple and strong. There we go. Bam! I think black is toast. The knight on e4 is hanging. He got to move it, but we are also threatening this bad boy right here, and that's a hell of a thing. Thank you very much. Taking the hanging knight. Thank you. There it is. Okay. So now we're going to see how wood converts. Rook d8. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now we're hoping for bishop d7. Okay, so white misses bishop d7, which would win the knight on f5. At least that's what it looks like to me. Snip, snap. Queen e8, trading it all off. Bishop d7 would have been better. Good. These are great notes. Okay, now it makes me a little nervous. Makes me a little nervous. It is a good move. It just makes me nervous. Good. Okay, good. Now notice, this is a totally winning position, but at this level, winning this kind of position is a very important art form. So let's keep going. Now, bishop f5, this makes me nervous because I just see this happening. And I don't want to even think about that kind of thing. Maybe bishop e3 first. Check to the miserable king. A useless check, as I can easily move out of the way. Best would have been rook a8, king f8. Okay. King h2. I would have preferred king f1 to talk to the knight, but okay. And now this is going to be mate, I think. Bam! Now, David Pruess, he's a master, so he doesn't have to do his mate in ones or mate in twos, but boom, wood has done some. Actually, we're going to go check if wood has done some. But that's a mate right there, my friends. Okay, so let's go take now a look. We'll switch over here, and we'll check out wood, and I'm going to see if I'm right that wood has already graduated once before. All right, so there is wood at 600, 700. Maybe it was just one time. So wood, oh, look at that. Done some mates. Definitely done some mates, my friend. 4 games submitted, fantastic. And look at the work. That's what I want to see. Look at the work. First chess workbook, Puzzle Rush PR, middle games, end games, classic games. Boom, boom, boom. That's what we want to see. Rating game of 103. Bang. All right, let me just make sure we are not missing a wood. There's all our woods. And then I'm assuming wood is not yet up here in the new 700, but then DM Hoki's going to do that. Now, Charlie Silva likes to count the amount of times that I get an ambulance going by. I was at the Chess Kid show, and I didn't want them to know about it, so I would hit that little thing whenever the ambulance came by. All right, here we go. Bang. Let's go back. And now, who's up next? We got Mudla. I feel like I've seen Mudla's name before. So let's go check out Mudla's game. Mudla is black. We're going to switch it up here. Okay. Now, it's an interesting thing about what he's saying about luck. One thing I'll say that's at this level, right, is I do want people, a lot of people are like, Kraai, what do you mean we can't study openings, yada, yada. Look what's going to happen. Let's say you're playing a bunch of games, chess.com or whatever is going to show you the names of the openings. The first thing I want you to do is to play principled moves, okay? And then at some point, you're playing these moves, your intuition is going to like some moves more than others. And then you will have a process of naturally finding your openings, right? You're going to also maybe look at other people's games and you'll be like, oh, I like the feel of this opening. And that's just a process, a way for you to find your openings without it becoming theoretical. You're just finding your way until you get to where the dojo program is saying, hey, buddy, now it's time. Now it's time to look at some openings. And usually when we do that, we're not saying go deep. We're just saying, okay, learn a little theory we begin with black. What's the first thing you should learn? If you're going to learn our openings, it would be some response to e4, for example, like here. Right, okay. Kraai, read the chat or else Kostya's going to get mad. Let me see this. It's an interesting thing. Now, I'm going to just tell a funny story. So when I touch this piece, it doesn't show the different squares it can move to. But I think on chess.com and ChessKit it does. And I hadn't really appreciated it. I'll just tell a quick story. So I was at this Super Bowl party last night. And one thing I want to say, maybe you guys have seen this too, but like no one understands what the recent chess boom is about. And what do I mean? Recently, chess.com went from like 5 million daily users to like 10 million. 10 million daily users. And so no one understands it about, but anecdotally, I can tell you, I'm just meeting people in everyday life, and they're like, I'm into it, I'm going. Anyway, so I meet this guy, and it's clear this guy has played a bunch of games. And at some point in the conversation, we were just chatting, and he's like, yeah, the bishop moves up and down. And I was like, no, boss, that's the rook. And it became clear to me that what he'd been doing, like the dude had learned how to play chess, but like he's doing like my daughter's doing, where like he's clicking a piece, and instead of knowing like how the bishop or rook moves, he's just seeing the little dots. Little dots that show you like where you can move. And I'm thinking to myself, oh man, there are millions of people out there who never really learned how to play. They've learned it. Well, I mean, they're learning how to play, but they're learning it by the dots. The dots are showing them where to go. And so many people have never played over the board. They never played over the board. All right, here we go. Good. Everything's fine so far. Bishop d3 is a little funky. Okay. And yeah, there's a number of things that black can do here. I think knight c6 is fine. Knight f3, and then we know a6 is the wrong move, right? We know it because it's not developing anything. And let's talk a little bit about the French. The idea of the French, let's say here, is whether we play bishop b4, the win over, or knight f6, the Steinitz, the names don't matter. The point is, we want white to commit, and then we want to whack it. It's a very simple thing. Commit and whack him. Trench warfare at his finest, right? Okay, so bishop d3 is hoping to stabilize the center without committing. And knight c6 is actually a very clever move because what this will do is, let's say knight f3, as it happens, knight b4, and you could say, Kraai, I'm going to yell at you told me not to do that kind of stuff. But the point is, we'll either trade the knight for the bishop, or the bishop moves, and then we further gain power against the e-pawn. Okay? All right, so here we go. a6, totally weird. Bishop g5, good move. Okay, good move. All right, here we go. Knight g4, bad move. Now, notice here that black's rationale for this is not, or rather, for black's rationale for saying it's a bad move is not loss of time, but something about the good bishop. Now, it's true. The good bishop is a thing, but far more important is the fact that you just blundered some time away, right? Not only did you spend this move on the knight, but then the knight is going to have to come back. Okay, queen e7 we should mark as a mistake because now white could take, and in addition to winning a pawn, there's dangers on the e-file. Knight e5, poor move. Again, what is going on at this level? People are dropping stuff, right? Knight e5, pawn takes, and now knight e5. Now, knight e5 makes me worried because we're still down in time, and white could open the position up. And again, when anybody's up in time, open the position. So black could have kept it closed with d4 and then taken the pawn. So knight e5, pop. Queen f6. Why is this a mistake? Couple of reasons. One is material, second is time. Queen f6 is not a developing move. and you can spend this move by snipping and then doing whatever you want with this pawn. Here, 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 I don't care. You're up a pawn, later we'll castle, we're doing great, okay? So loss of time. Now, one thing I want to stress. The key skill for this cohort, all the cohorts under 1,000, is going to be to not drop stuff. And in fact, this is also about stuff because on queen f6, your d5 pawn is in fact hanging. But I want to stress with the time, that one of the reasons I really push it with the time aspect, even in the under 1,000, I very much am going to push it after 1,000, right? But that I push it here is that it's a very simple skill to learn. So when you play a move like a6, you should hear me yelling at you. You should hear me going like, no, don't do it. Now, sometimes maybe you'll have to do it, but it's going to be a last case scenario that we want to ever play a move like a6. Okay, similarly with queen f6, if we can get away with not moving a developed piece twice, we definitely don't want to do it. Good move by white, ed. Castles, good move. I felt more comfortable castling now that the white bishop was off the board. Okay. Queen knight e4. Okay, interesting move. Queen f5. I think that's good. It's going to get a little hot now. Snip, snap, knight c5. Okay. Now, let's hope that black now plays rook d8. Let's see. Boom. Oh, I don't like it. Okay, so rook d8 was correct because then we're going to not only win the pawn on d5, but we're going to have a very active rook once we arrive there. And our king, very important, can develop itself on f8 to cover e7 if we need it to. So b6, the problem is that this rook now can come and whack us when they're ready. Let's see how it goes. Bishop d7. I don't know. We need rook ac1 is a hell of a drug. I don't understand. I still want rook ac1. I want the rooks come c1. Okay. g5 makes sense too. g4. Now why is this a double question mark? Because they're losing the pawn on h3? Okay, good. All right, so finally we get rook ac1, but it's a little too late. Good move. Better late than never. Now, black has a trick here, or excuse me, white has a trick which he or she finds with knight c6. Now the good news is if you just play rook d7, let's see what you did. Boom. Oh no! Oh no! Okay. So let's talk a little bit about tricks like this. Let me tell a quick story. So I've got this student. It was a little bit of an experiment with Jamil. And this kid, he's not really a kid, but he's been playing chess. And like a lot of players, he started really pandemic time and has never really played over the board, maybe a couple of times. And I feel like one of the key skills that's harder to learn when you're playing over the board is just when you're playing online, but it's easier to learn over the board, especially if you're sitting there with a long time control, is to really get a grip on the board. And what I mean by grip is just like being able to really be sensitive to all the squares and tricks that might become a problem. So for example, I don't think rook d8 is a blunder, but when you play it, you should say to yourself, oh yeah, knight c6, and then that trick, right? That's, if you reach a higher skill level, that's what you're going to end up seeing, okay? Now, the reason I say it's not so bad is a knight c6, we can still play rook d7. We're not in a hurry to take the pawn, and then we can play king g7 next, right? And then we'll be threatening the pawn, okay? And then white misses it here. My heart was racing when I missed that. I completely missed the fork check. Now, by the way, this whole thing about the heart racing, you have a much better chance of remembering this kind of tactic, which you will see again and again. This knight e7 trick, knight c7, knight c6, knight e7 trick, see it. You're going to see it a bunch of times, right? So that emotional experience of sitting there, terror and terror about knight e7, it's going to serve you well. And it's going to serve you well, I think, that you wrote about it. Okay, so read David Nowzy's message above Mr. Boomer GM. Okay. I'm working. I'm working. I'm reading your message, Mr. Nowzy Game. Nowzy Gaming sent me a game, and I have it up next. And this is not Nowzy. This is Mudla's game here, and you guys can see it right here. We got Pete O'Reilly and Mudla. So wait, what have I done wrong? What has Boomer GM done wrong? What have I done this time? Oh, wait a second. So you picked the game you reviewed last time for me. Okay. All right, good. Thank you. I will fix that. So now fix it, buddy. I will fix that when we get to you. Thank you for, you must have seen it when I went over here. Yeah. Okay, good. So rook e8, mistake. By the way, an interesting thing about this kind of scenario is to write down the times, because then we would see, like, did white think about it at all? And an experience at the dojo has been that people, when the end game comes, the people will very often rush their moves because they just think it's obvious or something. Good move. Poor snip. Thank you very much. Great technique. Run, Forrest, run. Run, Forrest, run. No, okay. Snip, snap. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Fine. I don't mind this at all. As long as we don't. Oh, look at that. That's a mating pattern. Okay. So, fantastic. Boomer GM for the win. Miracles sometimes happen. Hey, I'm working here. I get involved in looking at the game. Give me a break. Okay. Okay, yeah, I will fix that. Thank you, Nowzy Gaming. All right. So, first things first, let's go now over to the famous scoreboard and check out Mudla's progress. So there they are. Mudla has gained 150 points, my friends. And let me just make sure. Now, Mudla has actually graduated twice. That's what I thought. So graduated twice, done loads of work. Now, you see, this is their first graduation where they did loads. And then we're going to go look at their second graduation here. So there's the first Mudla. Uh-oh, wait a second. This says 900. Oh, I get it. No. Excuse me. Mudla went up 2 bands at one time. So they're now up here, though DM Hokie hasn't put them up there yet. DM Hokie will get to it. So let's take a closer look. Began at 1,000, went up to 1,150, 8 points per box. Now, if you do 8 points per box and get 150, you've clearly done a lot. Mudla's done 3 games played, 3 analyzed, beautiful, some postmortems, some maiden ones, and then some good work with the first chess workbook. Great, dude. Great. I'm loving it. Okay. Now we're going to do JS Niche. And I didn't actually find a game that JS Niche annotated themselves, but I did find a game that someone played against them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at that game. And the good news is I tried to do at least one dojo game review, show a a week. So a show that's different than this one. And in those shows, if like JS Niche wants me to check out a game and I didn't, Boomer GM didn't find it in the correct spot or something like that, then I'll do it. I'll cover it in that show. Okay, so here we go. And this is going to be JS Niche over here. And let's flip it. And pop, pop, pop. Oh, no. Okay. So, pop. As long as you play principled moves here, everything's going to be okay. Okay. Obviously a little funky to play e4, but interesting. Odd. Okay. So, the reason this makes me nervous is some kind of e5 thing might happen. And I'm assuming after f4, we're going to have to move the bishop back or something like that. White plays knight e2, castles, castles, h6. Now, by the way, this is, I just want to stress, this is not JS Niche's annotations. This is Lowell's annotations. And to JS Niche, we got to say, bows. You're losing some time with h6. However, we can probably feel that it's not easy to know exactly what to do. But if you didn't know, play bishop b7, bows. Move your pieces out. Okay. h6, f4, and now e5. And this is, first of all, good that they didn't get knocked out with the e5 push. But this is now going to be a very dangerous position for black. There's a number of things white can do. And f5, which is what white plays, fantastic. Right? Because notice, how is this guy going to participate? And how are we going to prevent the eventual g4, g5? So, beautiful move. And notice how strong this bishop is coming over here. And the h6 pawn, you could say it delays g5, but it really is a hook, something that we can use to open black's kingside position up. This bishop is poor. Okay, bishop b7. I don't know where else to put them. a3. I don't like it. In a lot of games, I get hammered by knight b4, knight d3 to ruin my pawn, so a3 prevents it. No! No! Now, let me say, Lowell, that is an example of trauma. You've been traumatized, and the same way, look at this. Look at this move, h6. Black has been traumatized by some kind of bishop g5 in the past. So black is like, no bows. I'm not gonna allow that stuff, right? Okay, so there are several moves here that are improvement to a3. However, we got to say this is an example now that we've headed to the middle game where it's not immediately obvious the time to do what. So let me explain. 3 dimensions of chess. Material, we've talked a lot about that in the Under 1000 group. Next, time. And it's time to do what? Now, at the very beginning of the game, time is about development. It's like putting your players into the game. You're the coach and you got to put them in the game. If you don't put them in the game, they're not playing. But the time to do what is often hard, especially in a closed maneuvering position like this, right? And I think what white should say, especially after making the decision of f5, is the time to do what is this? It's time to mate. That's what time it is. It's time to mate. Okay, so I think there are a couple options of how to do mate, and we especially would like to start pushing g4, g5. And so we could play h3, bishop f3, and the move I like best is knight d5, which is mostly aimed at saying, oh, this is their best defender, and we're going to get rid of it. And then we're going to play g4, knight g3, h4, g5. The whole business is coming to him after that. So a3, loss of time. Rook e8, I don't know what it does. Bishop e3. Again, it's kind of an interesting question of time to do what. It feels like a developing move, but later we're going to need time to play g4, g5. I don't know what it does. h3, good move. Good move. Actually, he calls it a holding pattern. No, that's not a holding pattern. You're playing from 8 bows. 97, no one knows what that's about. g4, please. No. Now, I feel like that's just looking for a trick of landing on d6. And black just says, thank you very much. So that's an example of loss of time. Loss of time. Okay, maybe playing for b5. a4, okay. a5, loss of time. b3, loss of time. Bishop b7, loss of time. Knight b5, loss of time. Now, by the way, it might sound like I'm being a jerk, and I am being a jerk. But the thing I want you to see, okay, is that because white hasn't understood the violent potential that they have against the black king, they're just kind of fiddling around. And unless we understood that potential, we didn't actually want to play f5, because that was the whole import of f5. Knight c6, knight c3, knight d4, good, good. Black's finally done something. Knight d5, okay. Now the issue with this, which is different than the previous knight d5, is now black should strongly think about playing bishop takes, because the position is closed, the bishops are worth less, and that knight on f6 really is our key defender. Knight b5. So look what happens. They trade their beautiful knight on d4 for our chump over here. And then they trade the wrong one, okay? And now ed happens, okay. I like this for white, this trade. He could have done also cd, Lowell could have, but this is nice because bishop e4 is coming next. Okay, important moment. We should definitely not allow bishop g5. So h4 should be on our agenda here, just to stop bishop g5. And now black should play bishop g5, passive. Good move, bishop e4. Good move, bishop g5, very good move. h4, okay, good. It would have been nicer before. And here we have a delightful position where we are winning strategically because the bishop on b7 is out, and we're threatening things like f6. And so this happens. And there's a lot of classic games like this and good ones in my system. And right, white wants to now arrange for g4, g5 with a winning attack. Also a winning spatial advantage. Okay, good, 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 good. All right, so check it out. Low, fantastic play over there, and it took you a while to get g4, g5 going, but eventually you found the plan, and I definitely think you're winning this position. Queen f7, I don't like it. Rook g4. Now rook g4 is a little highfalutin. I'm not sure exactly what we're doing. Why aren't we winning L pawn? Right? We should be winning L pawn and opening up the position. Okay. Good. Could have also, yeah, let's bet. That's great. Good. Rook a7. Good move. Might as well, you got to get the rook in somehow. And now rook g6 would be really hard to meet. Okay. 1. Okay. Now remember what I said about time to do what? It's difficult sometimes to know what we're talking about in this position, like time to do what. Now, why is rook f1? Maybe it's a fine move, and you're probably still winning, but honestly, that rook on the h file, it's already a genius. So you have things like rook g6, rook h7. All of those look great to me. But it's true, rook f1, I'm sure you're winning still. Queen f8, that isn't it. Actually, queen f8's tricky. Maybe with f6, we're going to meet it with rook f7. Good move. I love it. Let's take. No take. We can't take. Kraai, he can't take, buddy. He can't take. Okay. Rook F3. Okay. I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what we're doing. Good. I like that a lot. Using the king. Bishop E8. Uh-oh, we missed that. Queen H4. Uh-oh, things have gone awry. What's happened here, Kraai? Ooh. Ooh. All right, let's talk basics. First of all, I didn't feel terrible about this. I've got a pawn almost to the back row. No, you should feel terrible about this, Baus. You just lost your rook. And when I was going through the game too quickly, I was kind of just falling in a lull to sleep moment the same way you did, because you were just like, oh, I can do anything. And then we gave black too much time, and they actually ended up creating a threat. And now we're lost. We're actually toast here. So king e8. First of all, we do not want to trade the rook. So something like bishop f5. Second of all, when they take, oh, for sure, Baus. For sure, they need to take with the queen. They need to take with the queen, and we're done. That is game over, my friends. Toast, crispy critters, you know, the whole thing, whatever you want to call it. Okay, let's see how this goes down. Now it might be a little spicier. Let's see. That's maybe a dirty trick right there. Rook h8, is it a dirty trick? Oh, wait a second. Wait a second, that was a dirty trick. We had a dirty trick question. Check to the miserable king. Whoops. All right, let's go back and check. Is it true? Zonderbuck's talking about f5, reminding him or her of the attack in the King's Indian. Absolutely. Absolutely. Looks like white missed something here. Definitely now we want check to the miserable king with rook h5. And now it's interesting. Now it's interesting. Who knows what's happening now? I think white is going to win this thing. Now white's winning, and I want to stress it's all about the activity of the white king. So there's a variation here. Now, my personal sense, by the way, is to take this one and then take that one. But, okay, let's look at this variation. King f6. It is still winning. Yeah, it's for sure. We could go back to e6, of course. Well, that's a bummer, right? Okay. So, king c7. White mops it up. Okay, great. So there's a lot to learn there, and I just want to stress it was a great example of like when we play highfalutin positions like this one. White's playing this, what is sometimes called the Botvinnik structure or attack with the English. I think Charlie Silva likes this kind of thing too, if I remember. And black has played a couple poor moves, bishop d6 and now h6. So white's better, and black needs to do something like bishop c7 because that's now a strategically winning position. And I'm hoping, like, once you see that, if you want to continue using this English attack, this is one of the key positions to understand kind of the general take or feel of a plan of what black is going to do from here. Okay, good. Now we're going to go take a look at the scoreboard. Pop, pop, and J. S. Let's see. Let's put an N in there. All right, there they are, and this is going from 900 to 1,000. 179 rating increase. 7 points a buck. USCF, beautiful. One thing that we're going to see as we go up the ladder is that we're going to get more and more games that people are playing over the board, more and more ratings, that people are playing over the board, and games too, that people are playing over the board. And partly it's experience, the desire to get like titles and official ratings, but also just the knowledge that in order to really progress, you need that experience of not being distracted in front of the computer. So that's a beautiful rating gain. I love to see it. 8, look at this. Look at this work here. 4 analyzed, 8 postmortems, loads of made in twos, fantastic. Puzzle Rush stuff, and then some end games, some classic games. I love to see it. Memorize the game. Oh, dude, JSNitch brought it. Definitely brought it here. So I'm very happy to see that. All right, my friends, I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back. There can be only one. What are you doing, Bows? You hit the wrong thing. You hit the wrong thing. What are you doing? You chump. You were supposed to hit the different thing. Oh, no. And now Charlie Silva heard you taking a whiz. The guy's going to be diagnosing your prostate, man. What are you doing? What are you doing? I needed to grab a game. So here we go. That's going to be Now Z's game, and Now Z is up next. I originally grabbed the wrong one. Boomer GM typical move. So let's get to it, and hopefully, are you in the right scene, Bows? You're in the right scene? How's your scene looking? How's your scene looking? All right, here we go. So up, we're going to flip the board. Okay. Okay, fine. Fine. By the way, H6 here, let me just say, is not breaking any rules because they either need to take and develop our queen or move away, in which case we have not lost a tempo. Right? Okay. No pigeon game. Actually, thank you very much. We are going to do pigeon after Now Z. Pigeon, I couldn't find a game from Pigeon, but I do want to take a look at Pigeon on the scoreboard. Oh, Kraai, come on. Okay, whew, it's a long show today. It's a long show. Let's go look at Pigeon on the scoreboard. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, my friends. So here we go. And the scoreboard, pop, pop. Let's go find Pigeon. Most of the games, as I said, I could find people find their games, but I did not find Pigeon's games. And you know what? Look at that. Pigeon over here has got 13 analyzed. Now, maybe they're under a different name. I couldn't find it. I worked hard to find it. But the thing is, before I used to stress out about it, I'd be like sending them messages on Discord and stuff. But now I'm just saying, Pigeon, if you're watching this later, and you're like, boss, You didn't find my games because DM Oki didn't upload it right, or because you're a boomer GM and you couldn't find it. Fine. We will definitely cover it in a different show. I'm committed to that. But look at this work, dude. Look at this work. 163. Now, there's something wrong with this box per box ticked, because clearly that's an amazing per box ticked ratio. And 700 made in twos. That's a lot of made in twos, my friend. That is a lot. And then loads of work. Great, dude. Great. So Pigeon is getting there. We'll go over one of Pigeon's games coming up soon. Okay, so let's go back. Dojo game review. And bows. And then we're going to go bows. Okay. It's always Charlie Silva's fault. Good. Pinning his knight to the miserable queen. That's right. Queen d3. Castles. Now, just for my own aesthetic, whatever you want to call it, I would prefer d5 just to prevent e4. Okay. Still want d5. No. Okay. It's still fine. You're doing fine. You have not broken any principles. e3, good move. Bishop a6. I like it. Queen d1, free developing move, right? Knight e4. Okay. Now, I think this is, actually, that's a very spicy move. I like it a lot. Very spicy. That wasn't it. Boom. Good move. Now, already, though, they're in trouble. And I just want to stress, this is a knight e4 is a great move. So, we could have taken and said to ourselves, oh, I'm better here because the king isn't going to castle for a little bit. And that would have been true. But knight e4 is a really hot way to play because now there's no easy way to defend this dude. It might have been possible, and this would have been an interesting one to analyze, to go pop. And now if they play knight a6, then queen d3 and white lives. So the big question is, does this win? We play queen d2. And the point is simply like maybe white could have survived here. Notice that if they play knight d5, we're going to play c3. If they play knight a2, we're going to play c3. So this way, white could have survived. So this definitely deserves a question mark. This is a winning position. It looks great anyway. I mean, it just looks great. b1. I definitely want to take on f1 now to say that so the king can't castle. Good move. No castling anymore. Correct the mundo. So now d5. I like it. Look at this. These are great notes. Playing in the center and taking away squares from dude's knight. Fantastic. That's right. Also giving your queen some juice, right? Fantastic. Knight of 3. Okay. Good move. Simple and strong. Good move. Simple and strong. h4. Now, weird, but, well, actually, we should say, what should white do? They're not even thinking too much about it. Something like king e2 to connect the rooks. Right? And h4, super frisky. Now, my old friend Nimzovich said, attack on the wing is met by attack in the center, so c5 makes some sense. Let's see what black does. Boom, knight f6. I was following my plan, but here, again, I think c5 was better. Okay, I'm a genius. White goes for it. Boom, knight g5. Now, this thing, I was a grown man when I realized this thing is sometimes called the fishing pole to play knight g5 here. And it's a good practical attempt in this position. The problem, by the way, with knight f6, I don't know if I want to call it the problem. The thing that makes me nervous about it is, can white organize some kind of g4, g5? Right? And the thing with knight g5 that I don't get, as long as we don't take it, there's no real threat onto the black position. Okay. Now that's well, I don't know. It makes me hella nervous anyway with G6. So F3 happened, and what's the variation that we should calculate? Check to the miserable queen. Check to the miserable king. And now what is happening in this position? Check, and I think we might be toast, because knight h7, bishop e5, and then I guess you're gonna have to do that sad thing. And white doesn't even have to be in a rush to take it, right? So I think this was a big chance that white missed. Knight e6, gotta take it. Snippos, this is forced. Checkos. And if you go king g8, then of course white, first of all, smiles a little bit because they can get a draw. But second of all, you might be host. Don't say that word, Kraai. Kostya doesn't like. There might be some problems on rook h3. Okay? In any case, given that white's down a pawn, he should be playing knight e6 no matter what. So, interestingly, knight g5, which doesn't have a threat, does a thing what we call, Nimzovich calls, the threat is greater than the execution. So the threat is not really there. There's no execution, but there's kind of like the feeling of a threat. And then black trying to address it with g6 makes a bad situation because it allows knight takes e6. Chess Latte's here. Nice. Nice Chess Latte's here. My daughter's playing. I think of Chess Latte all the time. My Chess Latte is like so on a different level than my daughter too. Such a different level. Nothing wrong with my daughter. I'm just saying, Latte was playing chess at the age of 2 months. My daughter's 6 years old. She doesn't know how to mate yet, but she's doing that thing I described earlier. She's tapping on a piece and seeing the possible squares. I don't think she knows how. She definitely doesn't know how to mate yet. So we're working on that. F3. Pop. Now I know it's safe to take. It looks safe to take. Yeah, it's a little scary, but it looks safe. It's scary. Let's just say it's scary. Bishop e5, queen g5. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm greedy. Well, you should be greedy. That's the thing to take. Now, if I was giving white advice, I would say, Baus, I get it. Bishop e5 looks correct. This is still a little scary. No, it's not that scary. That's not that scary. So, good move. Good move. And I want you to, oh, I was about to say I want you to play f6, and I don't want you to play f6, Baus. I don't want, f6 would be a blunder because of this, and you put it there. Good. That's a good note. Okay. Rook h3. It's still a little scary, right? Okay, so let's talk about it. You say you didn't see the queen take, but let's just do brass tacks in this position. It's frightening, and the reason white has some chances here is that our bishop is out of play, right? Let's go back a second. This is interesting. So I want to stress something here that you didn't have to take. And white doesn't actually have any threats, right? So, well, white does have knight takes e6. We've seen that before. But there's any number of moves you can do here that prevent knight takes e6, like queen e7, right? So this move, we can argue like you don't want to do it unless you're absolutely sure. And I want to admit that when I saw this thing, I believed you, but it's still very dangerous. And we see in this position, it's surprisingly scary and odd. Now, I do think you're winning, and queen e7, maybe we should second guess now a little bit. So, first of all, I want to admit it's frightening here. To admit that it's frightening. I want to stress again that it's frightening because our bishop is out of play. So let's think about it. First, the reason I'm pausing here is it's not entirely clear that we want to move the queen from g5 because white's plan has got to be something like rook h3 and then the other rook to h1. And again, I really want to bring and white's queen has some grief getting to us, right? It's only when we do the f6 thing that the white queen gets to us. So let's talk about candidate moves. c5 has some interesting possibilities because A, we might be able to break this down, but B, we could get the queen off of our g6 square. Still frightening. Still frightening. I don't know. That's a surprisingly hard position actually here. Okay, I got an idea. Let's play f5, and then if rook over, we'll play f4. And our intention is to, is this clear? This isn't clear either, Kraai. I don't know, buddy. Why are you hanging this pawn at the end? I don't know. This is hard. This is hard. That might be winning, but it's not going to be nearly as nice as I wanted it to be. Yeah, so this is a hard position. Now, by the way, I think now, Z, that this would be a really good one to analyze, and give some variations to try to find out what is the best defense. It's not immediately obvious to me. And I can imagine, I've been in situations like this where I was like, well, I won the piece, time to go home. And then the guy didn't resign. Yeah, didn't resign. Let's go back one move here. Here's a nice move for us. Now, is this a nice move? Actually, I take it back. This isn't a nice move. I was going to say we could play f6 now, but no, he just takes. What are we doing? F6 would be a really highfalutin way of playing this position. All right. No, Christ. Well, okay, let's look briefly. I know we shouldn't, but here we go. Here. And the problem is when I go here, I still can't do knight g7. The bishop takes is actually a bummer because then I start whacking him, right? The point is, if once we move the knight, then there's bishop f4. So this doesn't look like a happy situation for me. Yeah, this is hard. Okay, so that doesn't work. Wow, this is rough. So knight g7, king e2. Wow, really interesting position. Yeah, at the bare minimum, it's not simple. So you played the natural move, and then this happened, and you gave yourself a funky mark. But again, everybody, when you give yourself a funky mark, you should say what the other variation is. Now, I don't know if I did this move c5 or now Z did, but the obvious question is, well, what about that, boss? You're still going to have to move the f-pawn. Mate's coming. Okay. So f6, pop. Pop, and now we have our sense of, terror with this move. Oh, man. That is disappointing. Ooh. Oh, man, that was an evil game. Let's go back again. All right, so white is positionally lost here, but we have to be sensitive to the fact that this bishop is out of play. f3, they missed knight e6, and now we just need to play queen e7 or king g7. But I respect the fact that this would be easy to think that we're just crushing, especially after we notice that we're winning this beautiful pawn here. It really does seem like we're crushing. G4 is very important, otherwise we get knight g3 in. If knight f6, we got to deal with f4, and then it's a real bummer. So I couldn't find any way to make f6 work here. And again, here's the dynamic. f6, bishop h2, knight g7, bishop f4. Hello. Hello. Oh, man. Wait a second. Let's figure this out. Okay, somebody say, Bradle is suggesting f6, bishop h2, e5, perhaps, but let's just say we don't know exactly what's happening after gh. At least I don't. You know, it's a little hot. And by the way, maybe black is, you know, better in some abstract sense here, but we don't want to give our piece back up. At least I don't. And the problem is we still have our positional problem after all that, which is the bishop is done. Oh man. Jeez Louise. Oh, it's a really spicy position here. Oh man, it's so unfair. It is so unfair here. Oh man, how did this go down? This is so unfair. It is so unfair. This is one of the more, I've seen some unfairness in life, my friends, but this is truly unfair because, like, we don't have any time to do this business. Oh man. Whew. Yeah, taking the knight, and by the way, like I said, that's something I could have fallen for. And you know, one thing that's interesting about this taking the knight stuff, right, is especially when you play some experience with over-the-board games, you know, you can really get a feeling for danger. And I didn't have it there, and I was surprised. I trusted Nowzy that it was going to work because it looked intuitively obvious. But right, it would take some time, and that was some deep stuff. Did White get lucky? Absolutely. However, the fishing pole thing was clearly their intention, right? So it did happen kind of the way that they had predicted it to happen. Okay. So there it is, my friends. Let's go on. Oh, wait, before we go on, let's go take a look at Nowzy's progress over here. And so we're going to flip scenes and go take a look at the scoreboard. Nowzy. All right, so Nowzy is now 1,000 to 1,100, and I think this is their second graduation. So 135. Let's first take a look at this one, 800, 900. Some games done, some maiden ones, some puzzle rush, some. The LCTRW is the Polgar book, right? Now I can't remember exactly what it stands for because I'm a chump and an old man. Me and Kostya were just talking about it. Classic games, beautiful, great. All right, so then let's keep going with the Nowzy. And then, right, 800, 900, we were just there. And then, so wait a second. So I think what's happening, and Nowzy's in the chat, he can tell me, is that jumped to go over to this course. So go Nowzy, going up to 1250, and then this cohort is 1150 to 1350. Makes a lot of sense. Right, Chesscom Rapid, exactly. All right, so Nowzy jumped over a cohort by gaining 135 points. Beautiful, 10 points per box. So, great job, and yeah, this is great, man. I love this. So we do not have a game from Yuri, But we do have a game from Sam, a.k.a. Beloved Bookkeeper. Sam is one of the people I know in real life. Pretty cool. I met her at the Baltimore Chess Club. So also a local connection. I don't have much of a connection to the Baltimore chess scene, I have to say. That is my fault. I go and play tournaments, and it's actually a really cool thing in the sense that when I first moved to Baltimore, there was like a burgeoning club, and now it's like they got multiple events, they got some tournaments going on, I'm meeting some of the people, so it's a really cool thing. Sam's a part of that ecosystem and started now as a pandemic player, studying a lot, playing some over the board, and definitely looking at her games. So let's jump into it. And cry, well, you gotta fix this. And then we're gonna go over here, and then we're gonna go over here, and then we're gonna go over here. So this, I believe, is round 1 of the Baltimore Open, which unfortunately I've played several times. I wasn't able to this last time around. So let me go back to this. Now Z was somehow in the 900 to 1,000, but I didn't find it. That's what I thought. I thought we had done a previous graduation. All right, here we go. Charm City, that's right. And Timpa's saying that they've got some games from Yuri, and like I said, if I don't find it right away, that's fine. I can always check it out in a different game review show. Okay, so here's the story. So Sam's been following the aggressive repertoire, and I yelled at her. I was like, Sam, listen, it's not time to do to do the openings, but she's really pretty religious about it and has had some great success with it. So this is still fun, even though it's breaking all the rules. Okay. Now, one of the things I wrote about this A6 variation. By the way, so let me just give an update with the aggressive opening repertoire. Chessable, man. It's taking for them forever to like process their business. So I have updated files and everything. I'm hoping they're going to deal with it. I will say, even though it's taking them forever, it has been kind of a useful process, I'm hoping, in that they gave me constructive critique on the first file, and I tried to make it more user-friendly, a little bit more fun, interactive, improve the files. So hopefully that iterative process increased the quality of stuff, even though it takes them forever to get back to me. So who knows how long it's going to take. Hopefully soon we are going to get a process. The next stage of the process, once this kind of gets settled, is for them to be some beta testing. And then I put it out on the Discord that if people want to be part of the beta testing, I can set you up. At least that's my hope, that I can set people up to do the beta testing. Okay, long story. So this A6 is a little bit of a bummer move to face for our system because it doesn't allow us to do what we like to do, which is to move the bishop outside the pawn chain before we play d3. So here we go. F4, there's nothing wrong with F4. E6, knight F3, D5, D3. Perfect, perfect. Now let's just say one of the things I really like about this D3 move is ED would release the Kraken here, and we have no desire to do it. Plus, we never really want to trade that pawn. So I'm very happy to see this move D3. Knight C6. Okay. Now, you could have played G3, but I just want to stress there's nothing wrong with bishop E2. You're doing fine. You're developing, and this is great. And D4, let's read what you write here. I agree with you that it's not the right thing for black to do. This felt a little bit weird to me, as I thought the tension was better to keep in the center for black. I had thought prior to playing bishop E2 that D4 was a possibility, but I thought it was positionally long-term a weakness with the pawn occupying D4 for black. This was just an intrinsic feeling, though, and the pain I felt of having to move my knight back to B1 was terrible. My knight will have trouble finding good squares in the future, and I lose multiple tempi. Okay, now here's the thing. What white should understand, okay, is that when black commits to d4 and closes the center, then we have ourselves a King's Indian structure where for sure Federico the f-pawn is in a great spot. And when you think about a King's Indian, a lot of times in a King's Indian you have a pawn and then you do a little dance, you move the knight again, then you do the dance and you put him back. You know, that whole dance happens all the time. Here we've gained a lot of time because we don't have to do it. It is true that after knight b1, we must be sensitive to the knight on b1's plight. And we're going to have to be creative in figuring out a way for that knight to get out. So let's see how it goes. Knight f6, castles, good move. Bishop e7, and now queen e1. Let's see what she writes. I'm trying to turn this into a Grand Prix at this point, and I should accept that the same patterns are not going to work. Black's light square bishop and queen both look at the h4 square. The discovered attack with knight e4 prevents me from ever being able to play queen h4. Okay, now a couple things. Moving your queen to your strong side of the board is not a bad idea. So with queen g3, for example. The real drama is how are we going to fix this knight, right? And it's not easy. One tactic would be to play c4, saying if they take, then we'll fix the knight. And if they don't take, then we can play knight a3 and just say, you know what, that knight is going to hold the line. And what I mean by that is, like, there's never going to be anything happening on the queen side once that goes down. So the idea is then that the knight plays a hero's journey role on the defense of the queen side while we then deal with our stuff. So that's one way to do it. And then another way would be to play knight bd2. This way, I have some problems with, like, if black plays b5, how do we get the knight out? If they don't play b5, then for sure we're playing knight c4 and in, right? Okay. So queen e1 makes me, I just want to stress, it makes me nervous. It's not a bad idea. True, you're not going to h4, you're going to g3. But the only thing that makes me nervous is, hey, the knight on b1 is funky. By the way, there are some interesting parallels here to a variation of the Dutch defense, where I'll show you that position in a second, where a lot of times in response to knight b4, white plays the amazing bishop d1. And this is one of the reasons why I think I'm especially hesitant for people who aren't rated at the level where the dojo says they should be studying openings for them to be studying openings, because what's happening is I'm worried that Sam is thinking about plans that, you know, are conceived in slightly different structures instead of thinking about, like, you know, basics of chess, right? Let me just quickly show this position. And one of the things, of course, too, the more experience you have, the more you'll know about different positions and that kind of thing. So this is a variation that Tall played back in the day. It went like this. It was a weird variation. The computers hate it. And you're going to play 4e5. And if you just imagine, at some point we get e5 in. So what did Tall do? He was like, let's play queen e8 and over like a madman. Like a madman. But especially we're going to aim for e5 at some point. So if you imagine this kind of position where white's going to play d5 and we get e5, we're going to, that situation you get in the game. And by all means, d5 here would be horrendous for white because e5 is a good move. Now, I could have changed it up, I guess, and I could have put it like this. This would have been a mildly similar situation. So bishop e2, d6. Oh, cry. I didn't do that. That was chess.com. So d6. Uh-oh. I'm worried that chess.com has lost its mind. d6. Castles. I don't know why. Okay, good. So queen e8 and we'd get a similar kind of position. Again, right, you're not headed for h5, but you are looking at the e-file, and at some point you want to put the lady on the strong side. All right, so that's just a comparative position, which kind of helps you know that while this position is unclear, your position is a better version of this, because in your position, you get this d4 move from your opponent. Okay, castles, a3. Okay, let's talk about that. I thought for 14 minutes on this move because I knew Jesse was going to yell at me for doing it. It's true, I am going to yell at you. I was becoming increasingly worried about knight b4 and the threat on my c2 pawn, as well as the fork that would occur. The reason that it took me so long to play a3 because I was worried about Jesse yelling. No, that's not what she's writing. It's because I was debating if my knight should develop to a3 instead and protect my c2 pawn. Thinking on the aspect of tempo, this loses one for white, which was my main concern with a3. I felt it was necessary to stop knight b4 in the end. Okay, good. And notice what you're writing. Knight a3, b5, this just seemed bleak. That's why the c4 move first is a little bit more strong in holding black back. This does seem bleak, right? Arguably, we could still play c4 here. It feels better to me to play it first, just because if they take, I want the option to take back this way. But you could play this position. I like this better than a3. I also like the idea, since you played Queen e1, to just be like, all right, here we go. Let's just put the lady here. That's what we know. We know that was her dream. Let's fulfill her dream. And we should point out that knight b4 isn't really doing much, because we always have this move if we need it, right? Or this move, either one. And then the knight b4 will just say, oh, you're misplaced, boss. What are you doing over there, right? Okay. So we talked in the earlier games about h6 being a trauma move, like somebody was worried, got hit with a bishop g5 that was very unpleasant, and a3 feels like a trauma move too, because knight b4 isn't doing anything at the moment, because you have knight a3 or bishop d1. All right, a3, so loss of time. And what I really want to say that I like about Sam's notes and the way she's playing it is she recognizes that it's wrong and spends too much time on the clock thinking about it. And the too much time, a lot of the thing I want you to see, regardless of whatever level you're on, is one of the reasons we want to write how much time we take is it shows where we were truly, couldn't figure it out, right? And a lot of times we take too long in positions like this trying to figure something like it out and then play a weird move like a3. Now, one of the reasons I want to say it's definitely too long is, even though it is a difficult decision, it's not one where you're calculating, right? And you want to spend time on the positions where you need to calculate. That's where we're really going to need it. Whereas this one is really an intuitive decision, right? So, for example, the candidate moves should be c4, queen g3, knight a3, knight d2. Those should be our candidate moves. Okay. Okay, weird. Now, black, what should black play? b5, of course. Black needs to understand that the queen side is her side of the board, and she needs to start moving over there. And rook e8 doesn't do it. Knight d2. Okay. Now, one of the things I can feel now is that a3 Sam felt was necessary because she wanted to play knight d2, and because this weird tall idea of bishop d1 wasn't on the cards for her, right? Again, knight b4 is leaving the center, right? So we shouldn't, unless it actually wins something, we shouldn't be afraid of it. Okay. Now, this, of course, knight d2 makes me nervous because on b5, I don't know how the knight ever gets away from d2. Okay. But now, actually, is a really important thing that, like, we're really close to making this work. By the way, one thing I want to stress, too, with knight d2 in this position is, let's say b5, maybe a clever thing we could play here would be knight e5, just with the intention of bringing this guy out this way. I like it actually a lot. See, because now we can play either knight f3 or queen g3, and we have a nice jump onto the king side. Yeah, I like that a lot. And notice what we did. We're fixing the bad piece, right? And if they don't play b5, well, we're playing knight c4, knight e5. Main thing, objective number one, do something with that knight, right? Something. All right. Knight d2, queen c7. Now I'm going to hope for knight c4. Let's see what happens. Good. Yeah. b5. Good. Fantastic. Now I want to stress, and I don't know if black, I'm going to assume black just didn't perceive this during the game, but the difference between b5 with the knight stuck on a square like a3 and the b5 with the knight on e5, night and day. Totally different position. And one thing I want to stress it is a lot of times when players play black, they're thinking about the pawn break. They're thinking like, oh, I need to get c4 in. And true, yeah, c4, great, do it, aim for it. But more important than the break itself is your control of your opponent's pieces. And here, black has completely lost control of white's pieces. And really important to see, white has now fixed their worst piece, right? Fantastic. Now we're doing great. Now we're on top. Bishop b7. Now, it's good from the perspective that this move is developing the piece. However, it's really hitting kind of a rock on e4. Okay, now we have our first tactical moment of the game. Sam takes on c6, and it's certainly an intuitive decision. However, let's consider something a little bit more frisky here. Pop. Pop. King f8 loses the queen. Here. Here. Let's put it on d7 for half a second. Now let's put this bad boy on f5. All right, what's happening? I'm not sure yet. We're seeing that queen g3 is next. Now, what is the evaluation here? I want to say this is hard for me to judge. This is just hard to judge. First piece of good news is I think knight e5, queen g3 looks really hard to meet. And on bishop d6, we got our friend g4, g5, also really hard to meet. Let me stress that this would be a speculative sacrifice on f7. So it's not necessarily something I want to do unless I really have to. Okay, so tactical point now number 2. Knight g5 is really interesting. And here's the point. Pop, 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 death to the queen. Okay? So that's number 2, which would mean, I guess, that black's best move would be this thing. And let's just say the tactics are popping now, right? Because knight e5 is still out of the picture. And we can consider several moves. And the most natural one, okay, we'll come up with other things maybe in a second, is queen g3. Putting the lady where she wants to be, in front of the king. And this is unpleasant for a peasant, as they say. Right? And h6, I don't know if you want to play h6, buddy. Because the bishop will be looking at this little friend here. Okay. Yeah, really interesting. So knight c6. Let's read what Sam wrote. I want my other knight on f3 to have more squares. Right. Okay. So the reasoning isn't poor. The thing that we should say is, in a position like this, things have really gone your way. So by going over our games, what will happen is we'll get a certain green light will go on to be like, okay, this is the moment where we're going to look for a knockout, and this is the moment where maybe we'll spend some time on the clock. Okay, so knight c6, pop, knight h4. Okay, right, this is a mistake. I wanted to try and get something going on the king's side, but missed black's follow-up. Oh, wait a second. We're going to talk about queen d8 in a second. So, important to see knight h4 doesn't have a lot of scope. It's not doing all that much. So, in general, what should we be thinking of? Queen g3. That's a move we should be. It just like that should be our default move, and then we can think about knight e5 and stuff. And then we can think if nothing else happens, we're going to play bishop d2 next. So, what happened? Excuse me. Oh, this is a different variation. I like this. I have a lot of sympathy for this. Yeah, I agree. This looks fun. Absolutely. And the only thing I want to add is I want to play, if I can, I want to get queen g3 in. All right, so knight h4, queen d8. So they're threatening knight takes e4. Okay, we can just go back. Queen d8 didn't help too much. Good, okay, beautiful. You admitted you're wrong. That's fantastic. Queen c7, now we can do it all over again. Knight e5. I still want queen g3, but there's nothing wrong with knight e5. Okay, queen g3. Beautiful. Beautiful. And you're right, extremely frustrating. I just want to push my f-pawn, but I'm not allowed as my knight needs that defender. No, I think I think we're going to do something here. Okay, timeout. All right, so tactical situation number 2 or something. Now, you're going to take on c6 and probably then play f5. Good. Okay, that's going to be a nice attacking position. We'll get to it in a second. We just want to see if you had other things. I want to stress that knight takes e5 right now for black is not the happiest of moves. Not the happiest of moves for black here, because that will open up the bishop and the rook. Okay, so let's think about this moment. I love that, notice your queen landed in the right spot. And what's funny about knight d7, you shouldn't feel too bad about it. You should say to yourself, well, I'm not sure they want to take on e5, first of all. And second of all, that knight on f6 really was their best defender. Okay. So, you got several good moves here. So, bishop d2 is a good move. And I think your move has a lot going for it. One thing about it, though, is this bishop is kind of hitting a rock. So, and it's not really helping defend the king. So if we have something better, I think we should do it. And I do think this is a nice default move because we're actually threatening bishop a5 followed by knight c6. Now, I think to play this move, you'd have to say to yourself, right, I think you were afraid of this doubling, but we got to say that's a great position for us because they're not going to win the e-pawn, and we just developed their stuff, and we have a simple plan of doubling on the f-file and threatening things like bishop h6. Okay, now you do some variations with knight d7. Okay. Okay, good. And I think this position, I would say, definitely an advantage for white. And long term, you don't need to play bishop g4, for example. You could just play bishop d2. But I like this position. But the simple fact is there's no need to notice, yeah, you assumed that you had to do something with the knight, but you could have just left it there. Okay, here we go. Knight c6, queen takes, f5. Bishop d6. Okay. Yes, and I love what you're saying. My dark square bishop is my best piece, not even arguable. It's definitely your best piece. And the dark square bishop, black's, is poor. I should not be trading here. Absolutely. Right? So queen h3, and I love your position. Yeah, very nice position. 2 bishops, you're giving them the business on the f-file. You know, the game's not over or anything. But you got a great position, just a great position. And one thing I want to encourage you to do, Sam, is in a position like this, like we don't know what black's going to do, but it would be good to force yourself to make an evaluation. So, for example, I might say clear advantage, And I might say something like 2 bishops plus an initiative against the king, something like that, right? Okay, good. So bishop f4, I'm totally with you. This is a mistake. Pop, pop, and let's see what black does. Poor move. I had a feeling they were going to do that. So black should now really consider playing on the dark squares and saying, hey, I'm not going to open this bishop up. That guy's a chump. So now our rook is open on the f-file. Okay, rook e6. I'm not sure about that move. Good move. Okay, frisky. All right, so black is the one creating drama for themselves here. And we got some options. You took and h4. I don't like it. Okay. So 38. I think that means that she's got 19 minutes and 38 seconds left. Black, by the way, probably should be thinking of some kind of structure with f6 here, and just to achieve knight e5, in which case, like, maybe they're worse, but it's still an interesting position. And let's say some simple things. Here, we should be obsessed with opening squares for our bishop. So there's 2 ways to do it here. One is to play e5 now, and the other would have been to do it here with the intention that this thing is going to come next, right? With very spicy play against black. Yeah. Okay. So, pop, pop, h4. That's weird. Now black needs to reorganize their pieces to put the knight on e5. Okay. Queen f4, good. Again, the pieces need to go to e5. Let's see if black finds it. Poor. Why is it poor? Because it's passive. So, queen f6. Queen f6, no bueno because of queen c7. f6, right? f6 is the move. Knight e5 next, and the thing that black should understand is, hey, once I get my knight there, it's going to be really hard to mate me. All right, rook f8, and now Sam, you're you're angry. You're angry at this moment. Maybe this isn't so bad, but I want to stress black has one goal, and that's to put the knight on e5. Okay, so what should we do? We should play bishop g4. Put some pressure on that knight. Well, it gives us the default option of always taking it, right? And I don't know what black does. It's a little bit unpleasant. A little bit unpleasant here. And on f6, what's our move? We're going to take that thing. Yeah, that thing's gone. And here we'll think about whatever we want to think about. h5 can be our default. We could also play queen f5. We're a little bit better in both cases. Okay. g4. Will black find f6? No. g5, please. Thank you very much. Good move. Queen e5. Good move. So the issue with taking isn't so much about the queen as it is fixing that knight. That's the thing that gets my craw. Can I say that? Get my craw? So queen f5 is a good move here. Okay. No, queen f5 is the poor move, excuse me, because of queen g3. Queen g4 is what we want. Yeah. And we have an interesting game here. Now, black should play something like queen e6. What's the struggle? The struggle is clearly just to get the knight to e5, right? And we help black doing that. Will black play f6? Rook e8 is also fine. Okay, f6, good move. I like rook e8 better. Rook e8 because we can play g6 later and fix our business. All right, let's say some obvious things. We could lose this game because the knight is so strong. And one of the things to observe about this position is you're kind of getting worked in an old school Soviet way, and your opponent doesn't realize they're doing it either. Okay? Now, what's the thing? What's the old school Soviet thing? The old school Soviet thing is the phrase, everybody knows that you take back with the pawn. And you'd be like, what is that about, Greg? Well, in the King's Indian, when we're playing a reverse King's Indian, let's say we have a pawn on f4. The phrase, want to take back with the pawn, refers to a position like this where we want to take back with this pawn. 2, why? Control the e5 square. So when we lose control of the square, this is the kind of paradigmatic situation we might find ourselves in, where the knight is very strong and our bishop is poor, and black has thoughts of playing something like c4 and maybe giving us some grief. Rook h5 I'm not sure about because I don't know what it does. However, I want to stress here that it's not easy to know what white's supposed to do in this position. I don't know. You kind of need to sit. And long term, I should say, though, you do want to try to open up the position if you can. So maybe a good practical move would be king f2, hoping to achieve c3. Now, why do you want to open the position? Because the bishop is stronger than the knight. However, I mean, even c3, it's not. The knight is so powerful on e5, right? And perhaps you didn't. I'm going to go ahead and say you probably didn't feel it because you took that knight on e5, which it even invited the knight to e5. There was other moves black could have done. Rook g8, g7. Reasonable move. Black offered a draw offer by black and accepted by white. Okay. Overall, I think I played well, as I am not comfortable with the a3 Sicilian, so a lot of the times I was winging it. I don't think that I should have traded off all my pieces, as I made my opponent's life a lot easier. I was worried about low time and used some of my time in spots I should not have, such as the a3 move that took me almost 15 minutes to play. Keeping queens on the board and rooks on the board was the only way to keep my attack going. Okay, good. If I was going to fight with one thing in that synopsis, it's that something I've observed also on chess Twitter is players in the, let's say, in Sam's generation, right? They're talking about like openings, all talking about it a lot. They're like, there's this one woman and she's like, I think right around Sam's level, and she's talking about somebody gonna play me, spar with me, and the queen's gambit declined and stuff, and it's kind of curious where, what's happening is players are feeling as if it's necessary for them to study openings, and their life is getting more complicated by this study, if that makes sense, instead of easier. And so the only thing I'm objecting to here is that not comfortable with the a3 Sicilian. The a3 Sicilian might have psychologically given you some grief, but in terms of how the play went, it was an interesting strategic game where you outplayed your opponent, as could be expected, by your rating difference, right? And I think for your way you want to play chess, especially with white, I think for the game annotations, there were some really interesting spots where you could do some work with the annotations of like finding the attacking resources. For example, here. You're doing great, this position, by the way. It wasn't the A3 Sicilian or whatever, A6 Sicilian didn't hurt you. You got here. Look at this position. Beautiful position. Everybody's working. Your bad piece is fixed. Genius, right? So this would be a position to work on, like the different stuff. And then we have the earlier position, too. I believe it was here, right? And actually, it's good to look at this one again because you were concerned about, later it becomes clear, right, to me anyway, that you were concerned with them taking on e5, but actually not the greatest move in the world for them to do because you're opening up Federico's lines Federico always wants the lines to open for the pieces. In any case, you're doing great, Sam, and this is points to a lot of the things where you can improve. And I understand, you're playing 1124, and this 1124 didn't actually drop anything. It's far. Wait, is that right? Let me just see if it's true. They didn't really drop. They made some bad moves, but they didn't drop anything. Yeah, and bishop f4, important mistake. Yeah, they didn't drop anything. So that's a phenomenon where I just say back in the day, at least that's my memory of back in the day, people were dropping things. Now it doesn't seem like they're dropping things. And again, I want to stress the focus in this position needs to be to prevent the knight from landing on e5. And there's a number of ways we could play this position from here. Queen f4 is another one. Okay, you guys, that was great. It was just full send. Okay, so let's stop there. I will do another. That was a long show. I will do a game review show at some point in the week. So if Pigeon or Yuri want to send me a game, beautiful. I will take a look at that in the next show. And I'm here basically every Monday at 1:30. Next Monday, it's not going to be the case though, because next Monday I'm playing in the Amateur Team East. It's like a long weekend. So I'll be playing in that event, and so probably Tuesday, I'm going to guess, for the next graduate show. All right, my friends, I'm going to leave it there. I want to raid somebody, and this is my little moment to give the spiel. If you have not checked out the Dojo training program, oh man, now is the time to do it. In fact, let me put a little exclam training in here. We're doing some nice work, and as you can see, people are getting, this is the way. People are doing some good work, and they are going up. They're going up, and I love it. So let's rate some. This is somebody, loads of people watching this person. I've never heard Moving with Matt. Let's go check Moving with Matt out. Thank you, ChessDojo.